What if I told you that everything you've seen in Hawkins over the course of 4 seasons was a lie? What if there was no 11, no laboratory, and the Demogorgon is not a monster from another dimension, but merely a shadow on the wall of a psychiatric hospital? What if the most terrifying secret of Stranger Things wasn't the existence of the Upside Down, but the fact that it exists only in the mind of a single child who simply could not survive reality? Today, we open the case of Will Byers. Our theory? Will never disappeared in the woods. Will Byers is a patient with acute schizoaffective disorder. The entire series is his endless D&D campaign, played within himself to escape the pain of the real world. Let's connect the dots, my young nerds, before the demo dog bites through our microphone cable. Detail number 1, the game that never ended. Think back to the very first episode. The boys are playing in the basement. Will rolls the die. He rolls, and it's a 7. He tells Mike, "It got me." That was the last moment of reality in the series. Immediately after, Will rides home and disappears. In psychology, there is a term, dissociative fugue. Will, bullied at school with an abusive father, simply broke. The 7 on the die was the trigger. Everything that follows is how his brain interprets hospital procedures through the lens of the game. From a medical standpoint, this is a classic description of a patient in catatonic state. Will is lying on a bed. He hears his mother's voice, but he cannot respond. His brain creates a hallucination. He is in a dark Hawkins, and the only way to reach out is through lights. The lights on the walls aren't magic. They are the flashes of doctors' flashlights, checking his pupil response. Inquisitive whisper. Detail number 3, 11. Who is she? She appears out of nowhere. She doesn't speak. She has superpowers. In our Asylum theory, 11 is a projection of Will's ideal self. She is what he wishes he could be, powerful, capable of fighting back, of closing the portal to hell. Or she is another patient he saw in the hallway, whose story about a laboratory became part of his delusion. Let's take a closer look at the shed scene. Will runs into the shed. The lamp flares. He vanishes. Look at this through a detective's eyes. The rifle never fired. The monster was never clearly seen. This is the moment of a total split in personality. The shed is a symbol of his isolation. The lamp is the flash of a memory fading out. But here, things get really dark, and if you feel the goosebumps, subscribe to this channel. Only 20% of my viewers are actually subscribed. Don't be like Barb. Subscribe so we can pull you out. Why do we believe it is Will? Because the world of the Upside Down is a copy of Hawkins, but abandoned, cold, and covered in cocoons. It is the perfect metaphor for clinical depression. When you are depressed, the world around you looks the same, but it loses its color. It becomes hostile. For Will, Hawkins died the moment he realized his friends were growing up, and he wasn't. All this time, we thought this was a story about a group of friends saving the world. But what if it's a story about a group of friends who visit a psychiatric ward every week and play along with Will's fantasy because it's the only way to stay connected to him? Mike, the paladin, Dustin, the warlock. These aren't just character classes, these are the roles they took on to help their friend through therapy. But there is one character who proves this theory absolutely: Vecna. But we'll talk about him in the next part of our log. Are you ready to find out what Hawkins Lab really is? Are you still here? Good, because we've just approached the gates of Hawkins Laboratory. But take off your rose-colored glasses for a moment. Look at this place from a different angle. High fences, armed guards, people in white coats, and children kept in locked wards. Does that remind you of anything? It's not a science center. It's a maximum security psychiatric hospital. Let's plug in our nerd brains and connect the dots. Detail number 4, Papa. In the canon, he's a cold scientist, but in our theory, he's the head doctor performing experimental shock therapy. Think about how he communicates with Eleven. It's the classic manipulation of a therapist trying to control a patient with a personality disorder. The tests they run, those are just sessions where children are forced to focus on their internal demons. Detail number 5, monsters as symptoms. Look at the Demogorgon. It has no face, only a mouth. In psychology, this is often interpreted as the fear of being swallowed by one's own illness. And the upside down, that's a dissociative state. When reality becomes too painful, Will's mind turns inside out. He sees the same Hawkins, but without people, because he feels alone, even in a crowd. Now, let's take a closer look at Season 2. Will sees the massive shadow monster, the Mind Flayer. Look at this scene for our edit. Will stands in a field and black smoke thickens above him. In reality, this is an epileptic seizure or severe psychosis. Will freezes, his gaze goes glassy. What we see as smoke tentacles entering his body is actually how he feels the effect of the heavy antipsychotics being injected into him. The shadow monster is a metaphor for the drugs seizing his brain to suppress his emotions. He becomes the zombie boy, just like they called him at school. But here is where things get really dark. And if you're still with us in this basement, you're a true Hellfire Club member. Hit the subscribe button right now. Don't give Vecna the chance. Subscribe, and we'll finish this quest together. So, Vecna, Henry Creel, 1. He is the key to everything. Henry is the first patient. He's the OG patient. He's the one who showed Brenner how far the human mind can go in creating its own hellish worlds. Vecna doesn't live in the upside down. He built it. It's his mind palace, but warped by hatred. Vecna isn't a monster. He's a projection of trauma. Why does he kill teenagers? Because they have secrets, guilt, depression. He feeds on their psychiatric disorders. Now, hold on to your chair. Look at Max. Her story in Season 4 is the most accurate description of the struggle with depression. The headphones, Kate Bush, that's her anchor in reality. Vecna, her illness, tells her you deserve this. When she runs through that red space, that's a metaphor for therapy. The music is the only thing breaking through the walls of her depressive episode. But Will was always the center of this universe. He feels the burning at the back of his neck because he and Henry share the same diagnosis. Every time they defeat a monster, they are simply overcoming another stage of therapy. But the illness doesn't disappear, it just changes form. From the Demogorgon to the Mind Flayer to Vecna, it is the escalation of psychosis. So, is Hawkins a real town on the map? Or is it just a hospital floor plan that Will drew in his notebook with a red pencil? There is one last question left. If all of this is merely Will's fantasy, then what about the rest? What about the moments when Will isn't even in the frame? When Nancy and Jonathan are hunting monsters, or when Dustin and Steve are cracking Russian codes? That is exactly where I caught you. It's time for our counter-argument. Many will say, this is impossible. This is a collective story. But listen to my debunk. In psychology, there is a concept of shared dissociation. But there is an even simpler explanation. Will Byers is the dungeon master of his own tragedy. To him, his friends aren't just people. They are NPCs, or controlled heroes in his infinite campaign. When we see the adventures of Mike or Steve without Will, we are actually seeing how Will imagines their actions. He scripts their roles. This is party management. Will is trying to keep everyone under control in his head, because if they leave, his world will collapse. Let's take a final closer look at the painting Will created for Mike. Look at this painting through the eyes of a geek. Will is not in the center. Mike is, because Mike is the heart. Will gives his best friend the leadership because he himself is too broken to run the game. The painting isn't a gift, it's a testament. Will is begging Mike to stay in the game. He fears the moment Mike says, "We're adults now, Will. It's time to stop playing." Because that moment means the death of the Hawkins world. And now, the final point. Season 5. The creators have stated Will be at the center. He was the first, and he will be the last. My theory for the finale is this. The last episode. Hawkins is in flames. Vecna is defeated. And suddenly, glitch. We don't see a ruined city. We see a white ceiling. We hear the rhythmic beep of medical equipment. Will Byers opens his eyes. He isn't 14 or 15. He's a grown man. Or perhaps a teenager who has spent years in a coma after falling off his bike in the forest on that very first night in 1983. His friends, they are sitting right there beside him. They are already adults. They simply came to say goodbye. Everything we saw was a brain dump before death. The upside down was merely the foyer of the afterlife. The new reality of Stranger Things is that it isn't science fiction. It is a tragedy about lost childhood. It is the story of a boy who so desperately didn't want to grow up that he created an entire universe of monsters just to have a reason to hold his friends' hands a little longer. Do you accept this new reality? Was Will a victim of monsters, or was he the monster himself, holding Hawkins hostage within his own fantasy?